1993. This was an important year in gaming for home consoles. Many companies were taking the leap from 2D to 3D computer graphics. 32-bit and 64-bit systems such as the 3DO Interactive Multiplayer and the Atari Jaguar became the focus of the gaming world, and others would come out in the years to follow. For Nintendo, it didn't quite make the full leap to producing 3D games, but at the time it made a few SNES games that rendered 3D polygons, games such as Star Fox and Stunt Race FX for example, thanks to its Super FX chip. But Nintendo also felt that the SNES could still be a great system to own despite what companies were doing to make 3D games. And it proved it with the help of another company. In the summer of that year, Tony Hartman, the product acquisitions and development manager at Nintendo of America, went to England to visit Rare. Nintendo Power magazine quotes that he was on a globe-spanning journey to find the best games in development. Tim and Chris Stamper, the founders of Rare, were experimenting, making a computer model with animated movement for a boxing game they had in mind. They were able to convert the model to the SNES as a 2D image. Hartman really enjoyed what he saw, so he spoke with Genyo Takeda, Shigeru Miyamoto, and the president of Nintendo at the time, Hiroshi Yamauchi. They proceeded to talk with Rare about using their technique to make a new game. Nintendo went on to buy 49% of the company, setting the stage for a game to be made using technology from Silicon Graphics. The Stampers wanted to make a game based off of Donkey Kong, a character that didn't have very much background to begin with, outside of the arcade gorilla who would throw barrels at an oncoming Jumpman to prevent him from saving Pauline, that is. Between Miyamoto and Rare, they each came up with designs for how DK would look. Their ideas were slightly different, but they eventually came to agree on this look, and that look has stood to this very day. Many SGI computers were needed. This was actually not difficult, considering that Nintendo already had a relationship with Silicon Graphics for their future 64-bit system. The hard part was producing the amount of electrical power in the studio that would be needed to support the giant equipment. In fact, they produced so much heat that during the summer months, the studio temperature would soar to over 90 degrees inside. Definitely not fun to deal with, that's for sure. They did have huge fans inserted to cool both the equipment and the programmers, but I can only imagine that it must have been pretty loud in the studio. Initially, the computers were envisioned for game development for the Ultra 64, now known today as the Nintendo 64. The modeling techniques used would still be effective on the SNES, but converting to the 16-bit system would still be a problem, as the home console was being pushed far beyond what anyone thought it could do. The result, however, would be a game that would contain some of the most beautiful 2D graphics ever seen on the SNES. Remakes would eventually be made on the Game Boy Color in 2000, the Game Boy Advance in 2003, and the Virtual Consoles on the Wii in 2007 and Wii U in 2014. The name of the game, you ask? Donkey Kong Country.